Good morning, everybody. What's going on? Happy Monday, almost end of April, and
Wow.
it's starting to feel
28th.
like
Wow.
I know it's starting to feel. It was 18 degrees Celsius. I don't know if you want to put that in your Fahrenheit calculator there
Okay.
here, but it was shorts and t-shirt day yesterday. I spent all day outside yesterday because it was so nice. Um, yeah, and it's
Ooh,
finally that time of year again. It was a beautiful
64?
day. Yeah, and
64 degrees.
it's about that it's about that today as well too. So it's been
Yeah.
we gotten very lucky weather-wise, and, yeah, we had we jumped on, like, 20 minutes beforehand because we had to talk football because we didn't wanna do it a lot on here,
Yeah,
but
but we're
yeah,
talking about the Masters on a podcast.
that's different. That's
Oh, okay,
it
sure.
correlates to hockey a little bit.
When are we gonna preview the CFL season on here? That's real. It's a real
I
question.
bet you we could do that. I bet you we
Talk
could.
about the Calgary Stampeders.
We could talk stamps.
I'm
I could
I'm
do
an
that.
Argos fan, to be fair.
I think the CFL starts soon, I think, if I'm not mistaken,
I
probably
actually
in
have
May?
no clue.
I'm gonna look. I know you're an Argos fan. For me, I was like, I don't know. Growing up, I think I was an Argos fan too, but now I'm like kind of like rolled with the Calgary vibe a little bit, going with the Stamps. Yeah, that's the way I've been rolling with it. But yeah,
CFL. Wow, actually, the CFL starts on the 19th. Preseason starts on the 19th, and
oh
then
yeah,
the
okay.
regular season kicks off June 5th. So we're actually not that
Uh,
far away from the start of
one more month.
that. Yeah,
All right, let's dive into it though. Not a ton to get into today, but I figure we'll just do one for the sake of doing one today.
we do have some NHL news today this morning.
Yeah, we did.
We have a couple.
Let's
We have
talk about
two.
that. Let's talk about that. Let's get through Calgary stuff real quick, and then we'll talk about
Sure.
other news real quick. Yeah. So the Calgary Wranglers, as much as Neil brought it up last week, where he's like, "Hey, let's follow the Wranglers these playoffs." Well,
No,
that didn't last long,
no.
as they fell to the Coachella Valley Firebirds 2-0, and
In
their
the best
season
of three.
ends in a best of three, as their season is now over as well. And the first thing
Yep.
Adam Klopka said before the game, he was like, "I just straight up don't like this team." So him playing in the AHL for a while, and he was like, "I don't like them."
I
So didn't really matter.
don't like them.
I know. Overall, though, I mean, still, like, if you're just looking at it from a development process here in the AHL, I mean, it's so weird
Yeah,
because it's like I never really invested too much time into looking at it from the AHL perspective, but you just see like the structure of the playoffs, and it's like, man, like everybody gets in basically, right?
yeah. We did have one upset, I think, in the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs. The San Jose Barracuda won both games in LA,
Oh
or
wow,
I want to say LA, but it's
Ontario.
not. It was the Ontario Reign, but they
Yeah.
played their games in LA for reasons I don't understand. Uh, yeah, the Sharks won. The Barracuda, excuse me, won both games, and Askarov apparently dominated that playoff. But it's
Well, he should, right?
he
Like,
should, right? Yeah, I was surprised that he got sent down like 3 months ago and then never came back up.
yeah.
The
Uh,
Sharks were tanking. The Sharks were absolutely tanking at
They
that
were
point.
tanking a lot. Devin Cooley, I got to give him credit though. I thought he just looking at the highlight packages, I thought he played to his best of his ability, I guess is the weird way to look at it. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I mean, it was kind of just looking at the stats and just kind of reading it into it a little bit more here with the
Yeah,
Wranglers. Like you kind of hope that it's still a good system that they have down in the AHL for the Wranglers, but I just thought it was a little disappointing because I think this is like the second year in a row now where the Coachella Valley Firebirds just decided to knock this team out in the
yeah.
playoffs. So they just can't get over that little bit of a hump. Um, so the season ends, unfortunately, for the Wranglers, and that ends it officially for all players in the Flames system.
Well, you know what? To quote Devin Cooley when he was still on the Sharks, he said,
Yeah.
"Nothing's really going to matter. We're all going to die anyway."
Okay,
That's
Devin.
literally a
I
quote from
know.
Devin Cooley.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
he's a good
He's like,
dude.
it doesn't
He's a
matter.
good
He's a
dude.
good guy.
And
Um,
I think he has one more year after that. He signed a 2-year deal, so he'll be back.
he does have
Uh,
one more year. I believe he
Probably
probably
with the
will.
Wranglers, I assume, but
Yeah, the Flames are going to probably look for backup this summer. And Cooley
maybe
will
they
probably
don't.
do the
Maybe they
same.
go with Cooley in the backup position. They could.
Yeah, they
I'm
could,
saying
but
it's a
you got to think
possibility.
worst case scenario here, right? You want to make
Maybe
sure you're
Jake
playing.
Allen. Maybe we get Jake Allen in the offseason. Yo,
That's the first
would
name
be
that pops up. Back if you're looking for a backup goaltender now to
really
suffice
good.
Dustin Wolf, it's Jake Allen, and I think a lot of Flames fans would be excited to bring in a guy like Jake Allen into this team. So, um,
He's definitely going to be.
a hot
He's without
commodity.
question, in my opinion, the number one backup goaltender going into the offseason because of just the way
Correct.
he played in New Jersey this year, the way that he was just like very consistent. I don't.
Montreal too.
My brother was like, "Oh yeah, like he'll probably go somewhere to start." I'm like, I don't think that Jake Allen is in a position at this point in his career where I'd be like, "Yeah, he's a starter."
No.
But I mean, granted, things could change.
He can
Um,
give you like 20 to 25 good games,
yeah,
right? And that's
yep.
okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that, right?
No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. No.
Yeah. So
No.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
going to be a huge
Tough.
hot commodity, and be interesting to see like what he gets signed for as well too, if that's something the Flames want to explore.
I would say he's going to get maximum 2 years. That's
Yeah,
the maximum because when he
maybe.
signed in Montreal before coming to New Jersey, it was a 2 year deal.
Well, he's definitely up there in age too. Don't forget.
Yeah, I think he
I think
is he his jersey number now? Is he 34?
he's
This is
something
my,
in his 30s. No, I don't think he's
but
that old,
he
but I think
doesn't
he's in
show
his 30s.
signs of
Yeah.
being like slowing down in terms of his, production. I was right. Jake Allen is 34.
Yeah, so you might get 1, 2 years. You never
Well,
know.
he'll be 35 by next season because his birthday is August 7th. So
He's not like that's the thing. He's gonna find work, you know.
he'll
Um,
find if he doesn't find a job by training camp, something is wrong.
it'll
In my
be like the
opinion.
Shadur Sanders of the NHL.
Well, that's not fair. Like Jake Allen's a
No, I know,
veteran.
I know, I know, I know.
No, it'd be more like what Hagen's like dropping to like
Yes,
the second
yeah.
round.
Oh, you wonder, like, okay, so that happens last week. Like, you wonder, you're thinking NHL, but also too, there's no real hot commodity here. Maybe it's like the guys who go top 5 generally go top 5 anyway. And if they slide like Demidov or Michkov, like a couple of picks, and then somebody takes them, right? So
Or you're
plus there's also like
like
not
Shane
50
Wright and
positions. There's
dropped.
like, there's only
Yeah,
7 positions,
there's
right?
only seven rounds. But I mean, we have 7 rounds too.
Yeah, true.
But like
Um,
we also draft like a crap ton of other. We also like have loopholes to getting players outside of the draft. The NFL doesn't really do that.
exactly. So rumor mill is back. And it's
Ooh,
officially kicked off
damn! It
for
must
the
it must be the off season.
it
It
must be
must
the
be.
off season for some teams. You saw it this morning with Mike Sullivan. He's out in Pittsburgh. I think that was fairly the right call. Just looking at it, I think
Yeah,
like
he'll get a job.
I know
My
he'll get a job.
my guess is it's the Rangers. That's my guess.
I think that's what everybody was pointing to a little bit, but yeah, he'll get a job somewhere. And I think
Lame.
that the Rangers would probably want to target him. Wouldn't be surprised there. But yeah,
Peter
so rumor
Laviolette to the Pens. There's just switch.
they're done. Yeah, so rumor mill back a little bit here. Mainly two things I wanted to cover before we kind of get into playoff talk here. The one was that when the season did end for the Flames, was the one thing that was talked about and very consistent about was offer sheets, how they're going to be a hot commodity
Mm,
this offseason because there's a lot. If you just look at the RFAs
there's so
going
many.
into the offseason, there's so many good RFAs this offseason, and you wonder there's going to be a lot of offer sheets going to be out there, right?
Yeah.
So one of them that was brought up and one that continues to be brought up is out of Buffalo in JJ Peterka. He's a young right shot centerman, exactly what Craig Conroy's looking for. And all eyes really are kind of circled around JJ Peterka. So again, it's rumor season. We're not going to have much to talk about until now between the drafts. So we might as well make up some bullshit. It's not really making up bullshit, but it's out there, right?
Yeah.
I think more the question, it's not really about JJ Peterka here, but the question really remains like, and one that we're going to continue to skepticize going into the season, going into the offseason, excuse me, is whether or not this team's going to be active in the offer sheet category.
hmm
What do you think?
I think you could ask the same question about every other team in the league, right? Because, we talked about it. Pierre LeBrun did an article a couple weeks ago in The Athletic talking to some GMs. I think he talked to Tom Fitzgerald and I think another GM, Tom Fitzgerald, general manager of the New Jersey Devils. And they were talking about it's much more likely that this year we're going to see more offer sheeted players. I think that the Flames should take a swing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because here's what happens, right? If you don't get the player, at least then you can force another team to maybe overpay for somebody and put them in a difficult spot financially. Or you end up getting a player that fills a need long term. And I look at a guy like JJ Peterka, and I think that he fits what Craig Conroy wants to do pretty perfectly. because he's a young player. He's not. I think he's just entering the prime of his career. And when I look at his projection of what his long-term deal would be in terms of money, they're saying it's a range between 6.5 to 7 million per year, which honestly
Okay. All right.
is, I think you could say, is a little bit of an overpayment, but I don't think it's as much as I think other guys could get
Does he need to be
for.
on that like kind of prove it deal though? I don't know.
I
That
don't
seems
know.
high.
I don't know. That's the only thing is
Maybe
that,
because
like,
we haven't followed JJ enough.
sure. I
Fair.
think, and look, granted, he plays in Buffalo, so sometimes it's hard to kind of like
Hard to follow that.
hard to follow, right? But you look at what happened with Dylan Cousins getting traded away to Ottawa, right? That was another guy that
Who
we had talked
who
about.
by the way, dead quiet these
He is
playoffs.
dead quiet.
Huh. He's
I,
been
I think
so quiet.
every acquisition the Sens have done like nothing in these playoffs.
Zetterlund, nothing.
Zetterlund doing nothing.
Cousins had a good end of the regular season. He fit
That's
in
true.
very well, but going into the playoffs, he's not. We hadn't
Sure.
seen him. I forgot about him honestly.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think that it's gonna be really tough to see, how teams project RFAs, because I think with UFAs it's a little bit easier. You kind of know what you're getting with a lot of these. You look at the top guys that are going to potentially be available: Mitch Marner, Nikolai Ehlers, guys like that, Sam Bennett. You kind of know what you're getting. With a guy like JJ Peterka, who's young, who has talent, and could easily be one of those top six centermen that this team needs,
Mhm.
it's still hard to project where he's going to be moving forward.
Right.
And you're wondering to yourself, do you have enough confidence to go out there and make a move like that? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe
So
maybe the Flames do, maybe they don't. I think it's kind of up in the air, at least in this moment.
here's the problem, right? Because don't get me, that is the number one target for Craig Conroy this offseason, right? And it's going to
I
be
forgot. Did he
interesting.
give an age range for that? I forgot if he did or
Yeah, it was like 20. He
yeah,
said it like
20,
numerous times. 21 to 25 is the
21 to
age range.
25. I
Yeah.
kept thinking he said 24 to
21 to
26.
25 is the age range.
21 to
Here's the
25.
problem. There's two things that Conroy wants to look at this summer, and we kind of touched on it last week, was that
Hmm.
he obviously the first thing is going to be Rasmus, right? You got to figure out what Rasmus is doing. We won't get into that today because I feel like we talked about him enough.
It's
But the other
boring.
part of it is going to be the centerman,
Sure.
position here. The
Yeah.
problem is that you kind of made your move a little bit in February where you got Morgan Frost, right? Included with the
Mhm.
Joel Farabee trade.
Yeah.
And okay, so you look at it and you go, okay, you got Kadri, you got Frost, and you got Backlund, right? 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Whatever they decide to do at fourth line center is going to be whatever at this point, right? So the issue is going to be who's the odd man out.
Hmm.
And I hate to say it, but at some point, I think Backlund might be the odd man out.
That's kind of the
You got to
thing.
make a bold move here, man. Like,
You
I
do
don't
have to
know.
make a bold move.
You
You
do.
do.
And like, he's
You
got
do.
one. Listen, Backlund's got 1 year left on his deal, right? I
Yep.
can't imagine they stray away from him this offseason. I can't
Yes.
see it. Do
Yep.
they do it at the deadline? If the season goes to shit, maybe it's possible.
Yeah.
I just don't like, I don't see a world in which he's on this team after next year.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
don't. I think, and
I
the
agree.
one thing that was consistent too was that Craig Conroy is going to have to make a bold move at some point, right?
He does.
And are you worried about hurting feelings now that you've built? Okay, you've built this culture, right? You've built the way you wanted it
Yep.
to. Now, are you worried about hurting feelings, right?
Yeah.
I think Kadri had a sensational year, and I think he needs to stay, right? He
I
like,
agree.
of course he does. He's looking at his contract, right? And he's earned the right to do
Agreed.
so, right? And he's
Mhm.
been telling the media all year, he's like, shut the fuck up. Like, I'm staying with this goddamn team, whether you like it or not, right?
Yeah,
The
it's true.
interesting one is going to be Morgan Frost, who, by the way, is also an RFA this
RFA.
offseason,
So is
right?
Kanazari as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they
We
don't
have our own
sign
RFAs to deal
if they
with.
don't sign Frost, I'm not like disappointed because they didn't really give up a ton to get him, right? Congrats to Kuzmenko, who was
He's
playing very
playing
well for the
very
Kings.
well in LA.
It's gonna be very interesting this offseason to see what they do because you want
Agreed.
Kadri to continue doing what he's doing. You want I'd like to see more of Morgan Frost, even if it's just for another 2 years. I just like to see
Agree.
where his game might be at, and it's still
Yeah.
a process. So I'm okay with like seeing him. But man, I would seriously consider moving out Backlund.
I would say
I
this.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Like if you're well, think about
go
this.
ahead.
Sorry, before you get in real
No,
quick here.
you're good.
Last thing. Like you're thinking about okay, the Paterka thing comes up. The other thing that came up too was Sam Bennett. Okay. Sam Bennett, you said his name earlier too. Like Sam Bennett possibly being, on the comeback here for the Flames. And there's articles about it going around right now. Just showing the one here. And for those of you listening, is like, again, maybe it's a random website that I'm finding here, but it's
Yo.
being brought up, right? About
Yo.
so like the way that I envision this is if you want to move the pedestal forward a little bit, is that you got to keep Kadri around, right? You probably have to keep Frost around.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, I don't think there's room on this team next year for Michael Backlund. And I think you go out and you go find somebody younger,
I agree.
and whether it be whatever, I don't even care if it's Sam Bennett or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But even if it's like a Paterka, whoever it might be as in the RFA position, you have to make a bold move here. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm the only one in this boat here that thinks that Backlund might be done. I don't know if he finishes the season next year with the Flames. I think it's a possibility he doesn't. If it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go next year for them, I don't know. Do you envision Backlund finishing his contract next year with Calgary?
I don't. I don't. I think that
It's
there's
crazy to say that, and it's
he is.
insulting to say that, which sucks. But you got to do something. You can't you got to move the needle a bit forward here, right? If that's the path that they're willing to go down.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's where it's going to come down to having a discussion with him in the off season, and really kind of looking at it and saying to ourselves, okay, look, we may have to do something really uncomfortable that a lot of the fan base may not like, and maybe a lot of the team doesn't like. But at the end of the day, we're trying to do what's best moving forward for this organization in order to take the next step. And you don't want to bank on Kyle. You don't want to bank on what if next season doesn't go the way that we hope. You don't want to
Right.
bank on that.
No, of course
I
not.
think it's if there's an opportunity where somebody is willing to give up something
You're
for
not
what
going to get the thing is, and it's
you're not
crazy
going to get a
talk.
lot. But I think honestly,
It's
I'd
crazy
rather get
talk at this
something than
point.
nothing.
Yeah, I know.
That's the way I
It's
look at it. If it
it's
means
stupid
opening
because
up
it's
a
crazy
spot for
talk.
someone else,
Yeah,
that's first thing I look at. And like I was just looking, at least from the free agent standpoint, I was looking at potential center options.
sure.
There is not a UFA out there that is in that range of what
They
the
will
Flames are
not
looking
be
for.
busy this offseason when it comes to
No, and I
I
think
don't
honestly,
see it. No way.
there's literally Kyle. There's only one guy that I could see
Excuse me.
them even trying for, and I think it's unlikely that
Mhm.
he ends up being moved. Is Mason McTavish? I just don't see it
Stretch.
though. I don't see a world. It would be kind of ridiculous if Anaheim just was like, unless the Flames overpay, which is always a possibility. Another guy, Kyle, is Owen Beck. But again, Montreal would be really stupid to let Owen Beck walk out the door. So it's
Right.
like you start going down the
It's
list, and Kyle, if you get a
yeah.
chance to look at the list, you're not going to be happy with what you're seeing. Like
No, it's a lot of ifs and buts when it
it's
comes
a
to the
lot of
Wranglers.
meh. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's like I mean, Marco Rossi is there, but come on, like, is
Oh, he
Minnesota?
already he already said he's staying. Of course he's staying in
Yeah, and like
Minnesota,
I
right?
know that Rossi's been playing on like I think he's been on like a fourth line at some point for
We're
Minnesota.
really reaching down the rabbit hole here,
We're
right?
pulling. Oh yeah, like the youngest UFA on the list is Alex Steves at 25 years of age. Alex
So
Steves,
so that's the thing. Like in the UFA market, they're
nothing.
not going to be busy.
I mean,
But
you got Cody Glass.
this is just more or
Who's
less like
26.
not to make decisions here, but this is just more or less a conversation of you're going to have to make a
Hmm,
difficult decision in the centerman position going forward. Whether I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know if it's going to be Kadri. I don't know if you let go of Frost because he's an RFA coming up. I don't know if you let go of Backlund, right? But
right,
something has to give, right? Because you
right.
have to find a way to move forward because you got a breakout season in Coronado. You got to break it. Well, not really a breakout, but I mean, Connor Zary, who's maybe taking that next step forward, plus his injuries, it sucked. Um, you have a goaltender to build your team around now. You've got a really good defensive core, right?
You do.
And guys in the system who could bring up. Again, the Rasmus Anderson thing is a conversation for another day. Even though he's a thumbnail in this video, I'm sorry. um, but I really think that there's gonna have to be a difficult decision made. I don't know where it's gonna come from, specifically in the center position. And to think that Conroy is still out there exploring that market. Like he flat
Yes.
out said it at the exit interview. He's like, I'm still looking for a centerman, right shot, 21 to 25.
Mm.
So it now becomes who's the odd man out. And I think that, to me, Mackenzie Weegar stepped up in the sense of leadership this season where I can see him. And I think a lot of Flames fans want him as captain, right? When
Mhm.
Backlund has come and gone. But it's like, there's two ways of looking at it from Backlund's standpoint. Do you want to honor him for the next year, right? Because you named him the captain last year and
Yep.
okay, you signed him to, I think it was like a 2-3 year deal, whatever it was. Do you
Mhm.
want to honor that, going into next year? Or are you still sticking to this plan for the next 2 to 3 years here to be competitive? Like
That's
I would be very curious to see the public reaction if Backlund gets dealt, whether it's off season, whether it's before the trade deadline, or
yeah.
you know, even like next summer, if they don't bring him back, I don't think it's any hardships, and I don't think people would care because he's a UFA, and it's like, dude, we got to move on now, right?
Exactly, and I think that's
Frankly, his
the
production went down this year too.
for sure it did, and I think that it's all going to come down to this team deciding what direction, like you said, Cal, what direction does this team want to go in, right? Do they want to build upon what happened this year
Mhm.
and try to go from there, or do they want to try to slow it down? Do they want to slow the process down, um, and just try to think more 2-3 years into the future? I would be very curious to see what the overall feeling is for Flames fans. Maybe that's something we can throw out as like a poll, on
Yeah,
Twitter
maybe.
and kind of see what people, kind of get the idea of what
I'm
people
kind
are
of
doing.
that's something I'm more curious about that than I am Anderson this summer. I
Right,
don't
and I
know
think
why.
that well,
Not
I'll
to
tell you
undermine,
why I
not to
think.
undermine Anderson this summer, like the importance of the decision making.
I'll tell you why. I think the big thing with that is because whatever they decide to do will then impact Anderson one way or the other. So if they decide to build upon this and they want to keep Anderson, they want him with this team, then they will keep him. However, if they want to go in a different direction, if they want to go in a different direction that focuses more on continuing to be young, continuing to develop this, that, and the other thing, I think Anderson is much more likely to go out the door.
Sure.
And I think that there will be offers on the table either way.
Mhm.
Personally, I think somebody will call, maybe more than one team.
I'm you wonder with Rasmus a little bit, like, is it possible they go to him and say, look, we want to it'd be tough to like try to convince him to get a 1 year deal, because
Yeah,
he's looking for an extent. He's got well,
he
the stupid
is.
thing
Of
is
course he
like,
is. Why wouldn't
sorry,
he?
sorry, that was a stupid thing to say because he's already got 1 more year left and he can sign the
Yeah, he
extension
does.
this summer. Yeah, I know that was stupid. So
You want another one?
but that's the thing. Like, I'm okay if he's still around next season, but he's
Yeah,
got to go at
me
the
too.
deadline.
Backlund, I'm on the other side of that. We're like, I'm not going to be the happiest camper if he's like still trying to play an impact role
Sure.
at his age and his skills declining.
Yeah, I think like it. I think the realistic scenario here is that, you know, I can't see back. Look, unless, okay, here's what it is. Because of the RFAs this summer and how polarizing it is, right? The Flames will go after it, right? Because they don't forget the team has to match it,
They
right?
do. Yeah.
And if they don't, then the decision will probably be made about Backlund, right? If
Yeah.
they don't, or if they aren't successful this offseason in getting that type of RFA, UFA, whatever, like centerman they're looking for, not UFA, but whatever. If they're
Yep.
not successful in the RFA market,
Yep.
right, then that's a telltale sign that, okay, Backlund's going to be on this team next year. He's going to be on that
Hmm.
third line again.
Hmm.
And more than likely, he probably gets dealt to a cup contender at the deadline.
Yeah, that's exactly
I
the way I
completely
see it.
see that. Like, I have
Oh,
no
yeah.
other way of seeing that for sure.
Right.
He deserves a chance to go win the cup at least, right?
I agree.
Is that not more of a gesture due than to honor out his contract? Like the guy wants to win, right? Everybody wants to win.
Of course, and I think you're absolutely right in the sense of like that would be a nice gesture by the Flames to basically come to him at one point and be like, all right, look, we want to give you the opportunity to go compete for a cup. So you tell maybe not him telling them specifically where he wants to go, but just telling him like, hey, this is what we want to do for you because, we appreciate everything you've done for this organization and we want to give you the opportunity to go compete for something
Got it.
that you haven't had the chance to do so. So we're
Yeah.
going to look for a contending team that would be interested in bringing you in as a depth piece and, we'll go from there. And I think that Backlund is the type of player that if he continues to be treated well, especially the way he has been up until this point, I think he would have no problem with that. I would be surprised if he said to management after being told that, like, no.
Mhm.
I would be like,
It would
well,
suck though if like it would really depend on where the team is going into the deadline next year as well too,
sure.
right? I think like I might put it out later because I'm very curious what people think. Like there's three options here with Backlund, right?
Hmm.
You either whatever if it works out the way this offseason that they deal him, number one, they
Hmm.
deal him at the deadline, or they just honor out the contract.
Yeah.
But by this time, next offseason, if he's still on this team, we know that he's gone because he can go into
Right.
UFA and he might go try to win somewhere else for a 1 year deal, right?
Hmm.
So that's
Yep.
going to be a very interesting conversation going forward. Obviously, the first thing is going to be Rasmus to figure out what's going on there. We'll kind of touch more upon that, like maybe closer to the draft and maybe all that stuff. We'll kind of get our
For sure.
coverage in for that. Don't forget, next week is going to be the draft lottery
Yes.
as well too. So
Be
we'll
interesting.
keep an eye on that as well too, because the Flames have what a 1.2% chance of getting 10 spots higher.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
There's a sliver of hope.
I actually
Um,
think that would be like about. I think most Flames fans would be happy if they somehow like moved up 10 spots despite just missing out
I'm
on
happy if it just like it is what it is now because
if
you're
it
gonna have to
stays
give up
like
the pick at some point, right? Like it is what
sure,
it is,
sure.
right?
Yeah, of course.
Whatever. So I guess as well too, maybe really quickly speaking of draft picks, with the Canadians kind of where they are right now, down 3-1 in their series. They're going to have obviously two picks, probably back to back if they don't come back in that series. We'll get to more of the playoff matchups later. Devils now down 3-1, Flames to watch for as well. So the 18th pick is still up for grabs here for the Flames. So if they lose it, they're only going to go back two spots. Not the end of the world there.
Yeah.
And then Florida as well too, who are up 2-1 in their series. They have game 4 tonight. Flames fans kind of hoping that Florida falls out there in the first round as well. Okay. Let's get to a quick ad break, and then we will get into the playoffs and what's going on in
Playoff
banana lands. That is the playoffs, especially
banana.
from whatever that was last night. So we'll do a quick break, and then we will be back on the other side to wrap up the show with some playoff matchups. Ready to win some real cash during the basketball playoffs and hockey playoffs? Check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts and hockey payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 posterizes the competition, including prize picks. Hit all your picks and score higher minimum payouts on Pick 6 plus even more cash if you outscore the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. You can download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Not really breaking news. This was kind of broken half hour ago. They announced the finalists for the Vezina, by the
Hmm.
way, as well too. It is Connor Hellebuck, Darcy Kemper, and Andrei Vasilevsky who are finalists for
Yeah.
the Vezina. We will talk about Connor Hellebuck, surely enough.
For sure.
All right, let's bring up the nice little playoff bracket. So far, we're about a week and change in now to the playoffs. Is there
Look at that
one?
bracket.
Look at the bracket. Look at that
Look at
bracket.
that bracket.
Is there one matchup that's been surprising to you so far? By the
Yeah,
way, by the way, in the West, everything's 2-2.
everything
Sorry.
is 2-2. And
Go ahead.
then we might get 3-1 Florida. Florida does win tonight. So we'll
Correct.
see if we get 3-1. I think the most surprising series to me has been Vegas and Minnesota because I really am impressed with the way that Minnesota has played throughout the most part in this series. We talked about it when we previewed the playoffs last week that like it didn't seem like that the Wild were going to come in and have a lot of success, especially against a very talented Vegas team, and also with how much they struggled down the stretch going into the playoffs. But again, as we always say, right, once you get in the playoffs, it's a clean slate, and Minnesota had two big wins back to back. You win game
They
2 in
had
Vegas.
them on the ropes in
They
game.
had them on the ropes
They
in
had them.
game 4. They really should have. They really, by all rights, be up 3-1, but they let it slip away. And so now you go back to Vegas. The good news is for Minnesota is that you've won a game already there, so you know that you can do it. It's going to be a big game because I think
Huge.
that it just if it goes back to Minnesota 3-2, I know it's Vegas, but I have a tough time believing that they'll win game 6 because I think the goaltending for Vegas has struggled much more than
Right.
people thought it was going to be. But yeah, I would say out of all the series so far, Vegas, Minnesota has been the most surprising just because of how well the Wild have kept up with Vegas throughout the first 4 games.
I'm going to go a different route.
Okay.
But I'm not disagreeing with that. I think it's surprising what Minnesota has been able to do. They played despite losing game 4, I think they played very well for the last 3 games.
They did.
And change, right? They kind of got dominated in game 1, but for
Yep.
the last 3 games, I found that Minnesota probably was the better team, and I think they deserved a better fate there in game 4. But it's best of 3 now. You're in that series, so I give them full credit. It's mainly I mainly have to go to Winnipeg and St. Louis here, right? It was like you look at games 1 and game 2, fairly close, but Connor Hellebuyck was dominant. You go to St. Louis, and he got ran out both times in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I think the Jets' season's on the line in game 5. I have no confidence in them going back to St. Louis. If they're down 3-2, I have zero confidence in them to go back for game 7. I don't know, man. Like, just look at, you see it 5-1 yesterday, right? Game 3 going all the way back here, 7-2. Like, Hellebuyck got chased twice, right? There is more pressure on, like, I'm more convinced this goes to 7 games, right? I think I had this going to 7 games.
I think we both did, yeah.
But it's been true. You're not in trouble until you lose a home game. If the Jets lose at home tomorrow night in game 5,
they're screwed.
I think they're screwed.
I think they're totally screwed.
I think they are screwed. So I think for me, that's been so shocking because, like, you have all this confidence going to St. Louis, and now it's like the script is now completely flipped where Hellebuyck has been terrible. He's been so bad these last 2 games, and primarily the reason why they are they are tied going back to Winnipeg here. I want to say too, I don't think I was surprised with the way Montreal came out in game 3 and game 4. I think they deserved a better fate last night, but that hit from Tom Wilson yesterday, holy shit. That changed the entire series. I think it's over, right? You just saw the body language afterwards, and it was like, oh my God.
They're dead in the water. Yeah.
And then Habs fans go out there complaining, and it's like, buddy, like, he just got rocked to shit yesterday. Like, Carrier got rocked yesterday.
He did. And I think that's the advantage that the Capitals have with a guy like Tom Wilson because he will do that. He will throw his body left and right. He will make a play like that. And he understands that, he can walk that line, right, of it being, a regular playoff hit to like borderline, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And he knows that he can take away that momentum. And I think honestly and truly, the Capitals needed that because at one point you're down 2-1 that game. They were on the ropes there in the third. They were on the ropes of having the Habs tie that series, but then you're able to have that hit, and it changes the complexity of that game. It changed the complexity of the series, and so it would be very hard for me to see Montreal in Game 5 back in Washington find a way. Although you have to give them credit in the sense of both games in Washington. They were right there. They lost in
That's the
overtime
thing.
in
They
game
were
1.
right there too. They
They
have
could
not
have.
been dominated this series.
No,
Outside of maybe shots, they've been in every
no,
single
they've
game.
been in every game, and I think that that's kind of like why a lot of people don't fully believe in Washington, because again, the constant looking at the underlining numbers and everything just doesn't make sense for them. And I think maybe at one point they're going to end up meeting a team, whether it's continue on in this series or further on in the
Whatever,
playoffs, where
maybe. Mhm.
it's not, it may not work out as much, and then they
Sure.
start having problems.
Right. Out of the the three matchups here that are 3-1 here: Carolina, New Jersey, Washington, Montreal, and then you also have Toronto and Ottawa at 3-1. Who's the team when you look at Ottawa, Montreal, and New Jersey? Who's the team that you have more faith in getting back into this series, going into their respective game fives?
I would probably say Montreal,
I
because of
agree.
the fact that they have not been outplayed in this series. They've been right there in every game. They've been right there battling toe to toe with Washington. I could see them being a team that could steal a game, and granted, you're going to have to steal more than one game in Washington, but it doesn't mean that you can't, right? I mean, Montreal did this to Toronto, 4 years ago? You
Huh.
came back and you were able to steal not one but 2 games. Actually, you won 3 games. Excuse me. You won 3 games in Toronto. I know that there were no fans, but I still don't think that would have mattered in that sense. I think that they're capable of doing it. The question that I have is the health of Sam Montembeault. He did not play in Game 4. He
Day to
is day to
day.
day.
So
I understand it.
yeah.
Logan Thompson. I definitely thought the Caps were screwed when Logan
Oh,
Thompson got hurt.
I thought he would have been
I thought
done.
he was
It
done. I
looked
thought he
like
was
his
screwed.
knee. Yeah.
But he apparently is fine. He's day to day.
That was scary for Caps fans. Holy crap.
That's kind of the thing. And but I still think that Lindgren can help them. I don't think it's like, but Logan Thompson has had a really, really great year in Washington. But yeah, I would think out of those 3 teams, I would definitely say Montreal for sure.
If Ottawa finds a way to win Game 5,
Oh, it's going to be in the back of their minds.
the
Yep.
Demons are going to come back in full force.
They don't win.
Because
They don't win Game 5. They don't win Game 5. Toronto. It's going 7 games.
I got that feeling
really
too, man. If they don't win Game 5, if they don't shut the door tonight, this is going 7. I don't know, man. I think Ottawa knows it too. Like, they have the chance to do the funniest thing ever, right? Because here's the way I look at it.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Like, for Toronto to win this series, you're not like Leaf fans will fucking parade the streets, right? Okay, like you're expected to win this series. You can't lose this series, but you're supposed to win, right? After all the heartbreaks, all the round 1 bull crap, you're supposed to
They
win.
have gotten past the first round. We can't make that joke anymore.
Yeah, I know, but like whatever. And then you get yes, they get past the first round, but then they didn't even win a game in the second round. So thanks for showing up,
That's
right?
true. Yeah, right.
So they still haven't won a game in the second round, by the way.
That's true. We can say that.
So regardless of the way this series goes, I don't care if they win it in 5, 6, 7, doesn't matter, right? You're still going to have to go through, in my eyes. I think Florida is going to beat Tampa here. For some reason, I think Florida is going to have them on the ropes at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it be Game 4 tonight or Game 5, like I think Florida is going to find a way here. And I think that the Leafs, if they're going to have to get through the Eastern Final, like you're going to have to go through Florida. That's just me.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tampa gets back into this, but
I mean, they could tonight. They could win Game 4. It's a different series.
If you're Toronto, tomorrow feels like a must win because you can't go back to Ottawa for Game 6. I don't know. It's a lot, like
especially because you were kind of the better team in overtime in Game 4.
Yeah, and the seed of doubt hasn't been placed yet in
Not
Toronto.
yet.
Leafs fans know that okay, whatever, they can come back for Game 5 and win. The seed of doubt comes into play if Ottawa wins Game 5.
That's true.
I think so. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the series here. Let's talk about your Devils here. We did talk about it before we jumped on here.
Yeah.
Tough way to go down yesterday, especially through all the injuries.
Especially when you're there in person.
And Neil was there in person.
He was there.
Was it being there for Game 4? Like, what was the vibe you got the sense of from the fans after the game was over?
That the season is over.
Okay.
I think there's no, I mean, look, there's no other way to put that, right? Okay. Because the Devils have had so much go against them this year. I don't want to say that like it's bad luck.
The
That's
domino
caused
effect, though, started with Jack.
it's the domino. Well, the domino effect really started back in early January,
With
honestly.
Markstrom, or
No, with just the fact that they just stopped scoring and
right?
they stopped being consistent. They
Mm,
stopped getting depth scoring. They were relying heavily on their top guys to produce, and when they didn't produce, they lost games. It's just the reality of it. I think that the first couple months of the year, it wasn't you could, you know, overshadow that because of the fact that you were winning games and you were getting scoring unrealistically from guys that you would not expect to be getting goals from.
mm,
Um, but then, you know, you mentioned that there's other things that happen, right? You know, like Jack Hughes goes down, Dougie Hamilton goes down, Siegenthaler goes down, Markstrom goes down. You know, it's just one thing after another. Then you get into the playoffs, right? And to be very honest, you backed into the playoffs because again, you didn't win to get in. You had to rely on the Flyers to beat the living you know what out of the Rangers in a game in order for the Devils to get in. That's just the reality of what it is. And then you go into the series and you've lost three of your top defensemen. You don't have Luke Hughes, who's probably done for the year. You
I
don't
think
have Brendan Dillon, who also is probably done for the year. And Kovacevic, who got hurt in game 3, didn't play in game 4. And we already found out that all three of those guys are not playing in game 5. It's not happening. It's not happening. It like
so.
it sucks that there's so much that like, oh, things could have been different. But at the same time, even if the team was healthy, there are still struggles there. And you're facing a Carolina team that will take advantage of those small mistakes. That's
Yeah,
just what they do.
that's who they are,
Carolina's at
right?
full strength. Carolina was at full strength until yesterday with the controversial hit by Timo Meyer on Freddie Anderson,
Yep.
which I know is going to be a talk.
Do we have an update on Anderson?
As of right now, Rob Brindamore has not given an update. He said
Okay.
yesterday after the game that they will reevaluate him tomorrow, meaning today, here on Monday.
I think if
So,
yeah,
so we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he was able to kind of skate off under his own power yesterday after being slow to
sure,
get up.
sure.
But I will say that earlier in that game, he didn't look right. So there was clearly something bugging him. And he did deal with an injury earlier this year.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I just have a really tough time seeing New Jersey winning game 5 in Carolina.
Yeah.
I
That's
know
the
that things
problem.
can change. I know that things can happen. But the way that they went out yesterday, you went down 3-0, you came back and cut it to 1, but then didn't put any pressure on Kochetkov in the third period.
Yep.
Ultimately lost 5-2. There is no good feeling going into tomorrow's game. It's kind of like almost like you're kind of going into almost like a funeral, right? You're kind of expecting
Yeah.
that this is going to be the death knell, that this is like the team has been put on hospice, basically,
Yeah.
and they are ready
Yeah.
to be
Sorry.
knocked out.
I imagine that Kochekov probably starts game 5. That's my guess.
And I don't know. I know that Kochetkov hasn't had the greatest, success in the playoffs in his young
But this is
career.
a perfect time to get him in, though.
But it's a
Right?
perfect
Like,
opportunity. Like he gave up a goal early on when he came in. It was like a turnaround shot from the corner by
yeah.
Timo Meyer. That should have been a warning sign for Carolina. And granted, the Devils dominated the second period and could have tied it. But I think once they settled back in after like the initial reaction of like losing Freddie Anderson and all that,
Mhm.
they locked it down. And I think Kochetkov, when he had to make a save,
He did.
granted he wasn't tested very much, but he did. And I think that shows you how good that defensive system is for Carolina against the Devils team that doesn't have any sort of creativity or depth other than their top guys, and you don't even have all of your top guys. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's just what it is.
It's tough. I know it's tough.
So,
Things can change, though. Who knows? It's
they
still
won a game in the playoffs. At least they didn't get swept. I think I think for a lot of people, just not getting swept, I think is better.
I
I know.
think it would, but I think it would also say more if they go in and win game 5. Even if they
I
go on to lose this series, which I think a lot of people can see that. If they go in and
Yeah.
win game 5 and they still lose the series, that's got to say a lot, though. You know?
And I think for everybody from the Devils' perspective, it's just simply they just want to see the team go down fighting. They want to see them go down fighting. If they lose, like if they lose, like if you remember, Kyle, 2 years ago, Game 5 of that second round series between the
Yeah, I
Devils,
remember that. I
it
remember that.
went.
We were
It's
live for
gone the
that.
exact same way,
Yeah.
and then they come out in Game 5 and they fight to the very end, and it just wasn't enough. They lost in overtime.
Right.
If that's what happens tomorrow, at least then you could sit there and be like, all right, they fought to the very end. And I think that I know that Sheldon Keefe said after they won Game 3 that that this team showed him a lot after
Right.
that game. It just with how hard it was to even win a game in this series. I think honestly that the only good thing that the Devils have is that you could say that you have nothing to lose because obviously you're down 3-1. You could just go balls to the walls. You could literally take chance. I would take chances. I would just do everything because
Right.
you don't know because unless you're aggressive, you're not going to beat this Carolina team. You can't beat them playing their type of game. You just
Gotta,
can't. And
gotta
so,
be aggressive.
we'll see.
Alrighty.
By this time next week, things might be completely different. But
And I assume they will be because it's the playoffs and it's the first round. And
right.
It's always
I
like
mean,
that.
it'd be nice.
Just going back to the West, last thing here, real quick here. The two we didn't really cover here was Dallas, Colorado. Not surprised that we're
not
two.
surprised at all.
Not at all.
It's been a great series.
Great series. A
Ian
lot of people
Landeskog's score was electric. Absolutely electric.
That was, and you can see what it meant to him, right?
And good on Mackenzie Blackwood, got his first career shutout in just his fourth career playoff game.
Great response for Colorado, though.
Correct.
Right.
At home.
Great response for that.
I think Blackwood right now is my front runner for the Conn Smythe, just with how well he's played in net for Colorado, because they could easily they could have swept Dallas, honestly, with the way that they've played. But you got to give Dallas credit. They've gotten some bounces.
Two overtime games, man.
They've won 2 overtime games, and you know what? This Game 5, I think it's tonight, right? Game 5 is tonight.
Game 5 tonight, correct?
Game 5. I think we're in for a good one.
I don't think Dallas has been the better team this series.
They've led for like a minute and 30 seconds.
Right. They have not been the better team this series. And if Colorado, they deserved a better fate. So go in tonight and give yourself that chance to go back home to Game 6 and just finish.
I agree.
Right?
100%.
Last one here. I think it's a good one to finish off with. Kings and Oilers, man. Oilers, the Kings, again, same thing. They deserved a better fate in 3 and 4.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. No. Let's not get it twisted, Kyle. They deserved a better fate when they were dominating those games. They did not deserve a better fate when they absolutely bottled it twice.
I said it that they needed.
They bottled Game 1. Remember, they bottled Game 1 until they scored at the end there to salvage Game 1.
Right. So I think the question is, who's going to fold first? Because we've said it all along. You're not in danger until you lose a home game. And I'm concerned now, like LA should have swept this series.
It should be over now. Yeah.
This series should be over. The Oilers scrap their way back. I think LA can. I wholeheartedly believe they will win Game 5.
Edmonton or LA?
I have LA winning Game 5.
Okay.
Because they are a dominant home team. They are such really.
I don't. Nope.
Really.
I think that it is too perfect, Kyle, because we can easily say, like you said, the Kings have been dominant all year at home.
Yeah, it's going to take.
However, again, I just want to warn people that they almost blew Game 1 at home. Game 2, they were themselves. They played a great game. They kicked the you-know-what. The only thing that the Kings have going for them is that the goaltending of Edmonton has been absolutely 1,000% awful. Even last night.
So has Bouchard.
Yeah, exactly. And I just worry about Darcy Kemper because he has looked shaky of late. And he has a tendency to look shaky at times.
But I'm going to trust him more than Calvin Pickard.
Fair enough. But I just have this thing in the back of my mind that it's going to be a close game, and
here's
then
Edmonton's going to get thing one. Though in all this is that you pull Skinner, you start Pickard, right, in game, was it yesterday? Game 3. They started him. They've now won 2 in a row. The scary thing is now Pickard's going to finish this series. Ain't no way Skinner's getting back in.
Pickard's going to finish the playoffs for, I think,
That's
for
what I'm
as long,
saying. I think Calvin
Stuart
Pickard now
Skinner
is
ain't
the
coming.
guy. Like, how
Yeah.
insane is that? Right?
It's
And
insane.
if you're McDavid and Draisaitl, you got to be so pissed. You're like, we really got to have Calvin Pickard be our fucking
Calvin
guy
Pickard.
in net. Like, that's
What
the guy.
happened last year?
Well, yeah, it happened
Last
last
year. They had to do it again. Yeah.
God, it's going to be a
Look,
that's going to be a wild ride.
Elliot Friedman said it best last year when they were previewing the Cup final. When Stuart Skinner is on, it's very good. He can just he just does what he needs to. But when he's like having a bad game, you get what you get in the first 2 games of the series. Calvin Pickard, God bless his soul, he's not that much better than Skinner. So like, if you're LA, just keep putting pucks in net, but you got to play better defensively because whatever the hell you've been doing is not working.
Right, and it's all on McDavid and Draisaitl's shoulders. Right,
and if you're Minnesota or Vegas, I mean, honestly, I think Vegas and Minnesota have had better goaltending in their series than LA or Edmonton.
Oh yeah, you got to be thriving if Minnesota.
But obviously, you got to focus on finishing your series before you could think about that. But like Minnesota, I think Minnesota. By the way, I think the Wild win Game 5. I think Minnesota wins Game 5, and I think it's going to go to overtime.
I like that.
I think Matt Zuccarello is going to win it for them in overtime. That's how I'm seeing it.
I like it. We got 2 games tonight. You got Florida, Tampa, Game 4. You got Dallas, Colorado.
Yeah, thanks a lot, NHL. We only got 2.
Well, to be fair, they had a great weekend. They had a great weekend for scheduling. They did. So I'll give them. I'm not going to harp on them too much because they had a great weekend for that.
I'll do what I want.
Okay.
I'll harp on them anyway. Screw this.
All right. Well, that's playoff look. We'll probably be back next Monday for to see how it all unfolds.
I think by next week, I would imagine that most of the first round series will be over.
If we're going to Florida and Tampa go to Game 7, I can see that being next week. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how
some of the series will be over this week, though, for sure.
Some of the series I think will be over tomorrow.
Wow.
I would I've been optimistic this whole series, Kyle. After yesterday, I don't know how optimistic I can really be, but
we're going to find out tomorrow night.
Yeah, we are going live. We are going live tomorrow.
Yeah, so we got a stream tomorrow night, and we got one Wednesday with Grant. He will do Sens and Leafs Game 5 for that.
I hope the Sens just do it. I hope they win Game 5.
That's I believe I think that's tomorrow night, actually. Sorry, Sens Leafs.
So they get 2 days off? Everybody's getting...
I missed that. Well,
to be fair, every series at one point or another has been getting 2 days off.
Yeah, everybody's gotten their fair share. So, alrighty. Nice. Good stuff today. And we'll be back next Monday. I think from now going forward here, maybe with the odd 2-episode week, we'll just do 1. But good stuff. We'll hope you all have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the rest of the first round of the playoffs. Might be over next week, might not. But good stuff as always, Neil. And we'll see you next Monday, everybody.
We will see you all next Monday.
All right. See ya.